Hey there, this is Frederick Dortmund from coherentlifecoaching.com. I'm going to read to you an article that I've published on my blog on the 13th of January 2020. It's called "The 2020s Will Be an Incredible and Possibly Disastrous Decade." I recently stubbed my toe again, and as glad as I feel about having difficulty in walking pain-free for a couple of days, being the worst I tend to come up with to see a doctor, only to get a doctor's note, of course, I always dread entering the world of modern socialized medicine. In a country where I am forced by law to take out medical insurance and where health professionals are trained to treat ever-recurring symptoms instead of solving causes, I cannot relax nor feel that any help I might receive is making up for the moral wrong that resides at the bottom of this engagement. I was joking to the doctor how the injury at hand or foot was caused in the last decade, and she said she actually did not like the idea of living in the 2020s. She, being about twice my age, felt afraid and reminded of futurism, a distant vision of impossible flying cars birthed by early childhood comics, rather than experiencing it as our ordinary earthly existence, including sitting down to poop, just like in the tents. I've never understood the craze about flying personal vehicles anyway. We already have them, and helicopters are extremely loud and expensive. I, for one, feel tremendously excited about the new decade. As much as I recognize how unreal a calendar is and that absolutely nothing in the universe changed as a result of this event, outside of human perception and creation, I still see value in taking new years and decades as an opportunity to compare the past times to one's expectations and make plans or refine them for the future. The past decade will have undoubtedly been the biggest transformation my life has ever seen, outside of merely growing up. In 2010, I started the last year of high school as a comparatively uninterested and uninteresting 18-year-old boy. I still knew enough about what I really wanted out of life to be confident in moving out of my mother's home and into a shared apartment with a schoolmate. The following years of studying business administration were largely a waste of time and effort, if it hadn't been for my voluntary work in student societies. The public educational system had succeeded in keeping me almost completely isolated from the real adult world, the free market, where negotiation and passion defines your success, and not how accurately you can recite your teacher's opinion that is probably wrong anyway. While my commitment in the student societies birthed the necessity to develop my social skills, I was still aimless and dysthymic. My ever-increasing interest in YouTube proved to be my salvation, as the discovery of the high-carb active vegan lifestyle in 2013 lifted the lid of my life happiness jar that I felt was to stay forever sealed. Only 1 year later, Google's algorithm scored again by recommending The Story of Your Enslavement, an eye-opener second to none that revealed the most glorious world of rational thought and true love. The resources Stephen Molyneux's free domain philosophy community provides were the fuel for my personal development journey that was to follow. I diligently kept a journal throughout these years up to the end of 2017, when I found most of its potential had been actualized and I could move on from it. As one of the very few snippets of useful knowledge taught in university I kept ever since, I had been aware that through the law of diminishing returns, the incredible and highly frequent revelations of the early days of journaling would gradually quiet down and morph into insights of lesser significance, as the rough reshaping of my mind had been completed. Over the years, I encountered a recurring picture in my mind that represents some of what I have wanted for my life ever since I discovered the possibility and hence the quasi-inevitability to create my own dream life. Sometimes I envisioned the warm, shaped blade of a quality kitchen knife cutting through a clean piece of butter. Sometimes a razor blade shaving a hair-thin sheet off of a block of wax. Always in close-up and nobody and nothing else present to distract from the beauty of the scene. I interpret the cleanliness and simplicity of this image to precise logical thought and purposeful integration. The higher the level of consciousness about a goal to be achieved, the leaner of a path towards completion can be taken. To this day, I remember watching the tech YouTuber Marcus Brownlee at the beginning of the last decade and was asking myself, baffled and intrigued, how does he possibly manage to maintain such a tidy desk? It genuinely appeared surreal to me. Today, I find that the more I achieve this level of cleanliness and simplicity, the better I feel able to create something new and overcome the resistances that define these things as acts of courage. My degree of cleanliness really is a representation of my clarity of mind and the degree to which I feel I am well taken care of and can focus on things bigger than myself. I have found that continuing to try improving my own life is increasingly inconsequential and unfulfilling. In fact, it might even cause new small problems that would have not come up had I focused my efforts on much bigger problems in the first place, as the following sentiment from last year reads, "Maybe the only solution to all of my problems is to give myself to the world fully and completely, despite fear, with courage and commitment." That wouldn't actually be the very worst life sentence you could think of. Today, probably as much as 10 years ago, Marquez is at the cutting edge of technology, utilizing camera robots and 8K cameras to produce the absolute highest quality tech videos on the platform. Despite the growth of his channel since then, their studio is kept incredibly clean and tidy. Equipped with a tremendous clarity of mind that I cherish as my reward for thousands of hours of studying, journaling, and reflecting, I know that for me and my commitments, there's only one way that I will ever take it, and that is up, up, up. If I only considered the realms of life over which I have almost complete control, the coming decade would be a bliss, no doubt. However, I feel deeply concerned about major affairs going on in the world. There is almost no chance we will reach 2030 without experiencing one of the largest, if not the largest, financial crisis the world has ever seen. With stocks, real estate, and bonds around the world in bubbles, and central banks kicking the can down the road by printing insane amounts of currency and proving their madness with negative interest rates, we are in for an enormous economic upset that might not only materialize in the form of a new global monetary system, but civil unrest and starvation as well. Worse yet, Western civilization is continuing its march towards suicide through the resurgence of communist ideology. Free speech is effectively being denied in many places to those who pose a threat to the spreading leftist feel-good agenda of postmodern relativism. Millions of students around the world are being taught there is no such thing as objective truth, and saying something that might make someone feel hurt is akin to physical assault. We desperately need to let go of the idea that paradise awaits just behind one more law, which really is just an opinion with a gun. Or for utopia to become a reality, we only need a few more people to be silenced, imprisoned, or killed. If violations of the non-aggression principle continue to escalate, this decade could end in a disaster. Whereas during the heights of my journey in the middle of the past decade, sitting down to journal for hours gave me great pleasure and a sense of accomplishment, I know that nowadays I can only maintain happiness for as long as I continually escalate the amount of value I am providing to other people. In that sense, there are great things to be expected from Coherent Life Coaching, as I have big plans for this business and am hoping to have you come along for the ride.